Noise. Let's have a clap. Thank you. It's great to be here. Now we're going to start with something a little bit unusual today. We are mourning the loss of the premier, the past premier of this country. Mr. Li Keqiang died on Friday, as you know from the newspapers. So let's take a moment to pay our respects to this great man. He was much beloved. He loved Hong Kong, visited quite often, and is much loved in Hong Kong too. So I'm going to ask everybody, please, to rise to your feet, and we'll take a moment of silence out of respect for the past premier, Mr. Li Keqiang. Thank you. You may take your seats again. Now on to the matters before us. Now we have a rather dramatic topic today, the great changes that are happening in the world, changes that are happening at a large scale and a small scale. And we have a little introductory video to set the scene. Let's roll the intro video.
We see world markets are changing, then notice that our own behavior is changing too. The business world is changing. As technologists say, big data will create transformation. But while many hope that AI will create positive opportunities, we can already see negative outcomes appearing. Some of the best minds locally and internationally will discuss the challenge of leading in a time of transition.
Now we're discussing today leading in a time of transition. Now, some of you may have noticed in the newspapers that Kamala Harris, I'm just going to get out of the way of these gentlemen with their large object. I'm going to stand over here, I think. So you may have noticed in the newspapers that Kamala Harris was in UK discussing the change in the world and AI and security just yesterday. And there's a meeting in Beijing discussing AI today. And you know what? Here's our challenge. Can you be, our speakers, panelists, can you be more articulate, intelligent than Kamala Harris? My money's on you. We've got two great panels, but before that, we're going to ceremonially open the event. And we've got some very special guests who I'm going to announce. And I'll announce their names as they come to the stage. First, the Honourable Mrs. Maria Tam Wai Chu. Please come to the stage. Mrs. Tam, of course, very famous, one of the best-known faces in Hong Kong. And you were famous, Maria, when I was a boy reporter on the South China Morning Post 30 years ago. Thank you. Mr. Warner Jerk Wing Hing. Thank you very much. Mr. Jerk is Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration, one of the top roles of the government, and we're very pleased to have you here. Mr. Li Yongsheng. Mr. Li is Deputy Commissioner of the Office of the Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the PRC in Hong Kong, and we're thrilled to have him supporting this event. And Professor Herman Hu. Professor Hu has many hats, but he's here today as the chairman of Friday Culture, a young but dynamic media company. Now, as you can see, they are each been given a kind of magic wand, Harry Potter style. So let's do a countdown together, all of us, from 5 to 1, and then they'll wave their magic wands and start the magic ball in the middle. So starting from 5, all together. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. We should have made you say a Harry Potter spell, shouldn't we? Anybody know any Harry Potter spells? Wingardium Leviosa, right? Okay, photographers, can we have a group photo of our wonderful ceremonial team together with our magic wands? Okay, they're being collected by this young lady here. Too bad. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can you stay on the stage, but just step back for a minute, because we're going to ask the young men to actually move this, this large device. I'm glad they turned up. I thought I was going to have to do that myself. Okay, and let's have a photograph of the officiating guests as they are. Thank you very much. Now, please stay there just for one more minute. I'm going to ask the gang from Friday Culture to join us on stage. So please join us. Jeannie Hu Learn T.Y. Jeannie, please come up. Professor Whitman Hong, can I ask you to come up too? Mr. Patrick Chan Ong Yip. Patrick, please join the stage. Mr. Nicholas Chan, please join us. All these, of course, are fairly well-known Hong Kong faces. You'll know if you've been around a while. Dr. Vincent Ho, please come up. And Dr. Henry Ho, please join us too. Now, if you've been in Hong Kong a long time, you'll know how important group photographs are. Nothing happens in Hong Kong without group photographs. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You would take your seats, except for Professor Hu. Professor Hu, I'm going to ask you to stay behind, and may we have the lectern, please? Professor Hu is going to give the welcome address.
Thank you, Nuri. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Lee, Ms. Tam, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you all to our forum today. This is the third one held by the Hong Kong Coalition and Friday Culture. Our first forum in 2021 was called International Communications in the New Era and focused on raising awareness of stories from this side of the planet. And then a year ago, 2022, we had a rather aspirational title, A Fairer and Safer World. Today, we look at breaking news and realize that our worries were more than justified. Still, we believe the world can be made fairer and safer, and gatherings like this will help lead us in the right direction. Recent news may have got everyone worried, but at the same time, the world is changing in many positive ways and don't make the headline. For example, in 1980, 10% of the newborn children died from preventable causes. But that figure was dropped to about only 3% recently. In just 15 years, 25 countries have halved the number of poor people on the UN Multidimensional Poverty Index. But perhaps the biggest under-discussed news item of all is this. The world is changing dramatically. It is rapidly transitioning to becoming a very different planet in geopolitical power, in technology, in finance, and even in human behavior. Let us take you back for a moment to 1986. That year, India and China had exactly matching GDP figures. Both countries have a gross domestic product of 276 billion US dollars. 1986 was not so long ago, but let's look at how things changed. Today, India's GDP is $3.4 trillion, while China is in excess of $18 trillion. It grew 65 times. In a single generation, China went from nowhere to being one of the largest economies in the world. These are stats, but we must never forget, behind these numbers are literally 2 billion human stories. Tales of life-changing developments in the lives of women, men, and children. And of course, there is technology. 50 years ago, if you want a supercomputer, the nearest example would be in a university on the other side of the planet. Today, we each have one in our pockets. And where is this from? It's designed in the United States and made in a factory in South China, just around the corner from here. That's teamwork. The world is transitioning to a new model. That's a fact. But how can wise heads make sure the changes are positive? In the newspaper today, we read about wars in Europe, in Africa, and in the Middle East, causing misery for millions. Yet, it need not be like that. It is imperative that we create ways for positive cooperation that bypass negative geopolitics. It can be done. When the Belt and Road Initiative held its 10th anniversary conference in Beijing last month, 151 countries were represented. That's 3/4 of all nations on Earth. Of course, not all the 3,000 plus BRI projects will be a smooth success. But all of them show an attempt by different communities to work together for the common good of mankind. And this spirit of peaceful cooperation is what is important. I'm here representing Friday Culture, a group that works to balance the rather negative portrayal of our city and our country in the international media. Instead of starting a war of words, we encourage good-natured exchange of information through our presence on social media and the internet and through forums like this. In chapter 30 of the Tao Te Ching, we read, "Those who advise the ruler on the way do not want the world subdued to weapons. Such deeds bring on retaliation. Thorn bushes grew where armies have camped." 24 centuries ago, Lao Tzu realized that a peaceful rise was a better choice than a military one. It's always good to listen to the wise, which is why I sincerely look forward to hearing what the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and the panelists have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Hu. And he gave us a hint there of our next speaker, the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong SAR. He's not able to be here physically, but he did record a special message for us, which we'll hear now.
Deputy Director Lu Xinning, Acting Commissioner Li永胜, Professor Herman Hu, Deputy Secretary General Maria Tam, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The theme of the International Forum today is Leading in a Time of Transition. The forum is joined by government officials, scholars, as well as leaders of businesses and other sectors. Together, we will explore business trends across the globe and the impact of leadership on the rapid development of society. I fondly remember addressing this very forum last year on the theme of Towards a Fairer, Safer World. I said last year that the world is undergoing profound changes unseen in a century. Indeed, while we are doing our part to build a fairer and safer society, we are all living in an era of transition. Geopolitical tensions around the world and uncertainties in the global economy, coupled with the threats posed by climate change, food and energy crisis, have created challenges to governments, businesses, and individuals. This year marks the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative proposed by President Xi Jinping. In his keynote address at the Third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation in Beijing last month, President Xi stressed that humankind is a community with a shared future. The President said, and I quote, "We should jointly address various global risks and challenges and deliver a bright future of peace, development, cooperation, and mutual benefit for future generations." Under the unique one country, two systems principle, Hong Kong is the only city in the world that enjoys both the China advantage and the global advantage. As an open economy that champions free trade and multilateralism, Hong Kong is committed to boosting our resilience in adapting to challenges that come our way. We have already signed free trade agreements with 20 economies around the world. Hong Kong is striving for early accession to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP. RCEP is the world's largest FTA, and we are committed to deepening regional economic cooperation together with RCEP members. We have also signed investment agreements with 32 economies. The latest addition is Turkey, with whom we signed a new IPPA this week. We are negotiating an FTA with Peru. Meanwhile, we are also in active negotiation with Bahrain, Bangladesh, and Saudi Arabia on investment agreements. These will provide Hong Kong enterprises with better market access, as well as more thorough legal protection, a better framework to navigate and lead in a world of changes. And to realize that, it is important to bring ourselves back to the Belt and Road. The Silk Road spirit of peace and cooperation, openness and inclusiveness, mutual learning and mutual benefit is the most important source of strength for Belt and Road cooperation. As an East-West Center for international arts and cultural exchange, Hong Kong has signed MOUs on cultural cooperation with more than 10 Belt and Road countries. Hong Kong is also bestowed with a wealth of museums and exhibition resources. Located at the burgeoning West Kowloon Cultural District, the Hong Kong Palace Museum, which showcases treasures from the Forbidden City, and the M+, which Asia's first global museum of contemporary visual culture, have become must-see attractions for visitors. In this free and enterprising Asia's world city, we welcome our friends from around the world to rejoice in our cultural venues and better understand one another. Expanding our circle of friends from around the world, I believe, will go a long way to helping us lead in this time of transition, as we're building a harmonious and cohesive society. Ladies and gentlemen, the District Council ordinary election will take place on December the 10th. I encourage you all to cast a vote on the day to elect capable, patriotic representatives who are passionate to serve the local community. On that note, I wish all of you good health and the best of business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was great. I'm so glad he did that for us. You know, these things often don't make the headlines, but did you notice how many deals he was talking about there? New deal with Bahrain, Bangladesh, Peru, Turkey, all these deals that the Hong Kong government is making to create trade and business activity around the world in Hong Kong. And they don't make it to the media, but they're really important. And I'm so glad we have a team that's outward looking, running the Hong Kong government at the moment. Okay, that's our introductory and ceremonial parts over. Now it's time for the main event. We've got two panels with some very fine minds involved with them. And the first panel is going to be on a finance theme, a second on a technology theme. But first I'd like to invite the moderator of the first panel to come up. Please give a warm welcome, please, to Mr. Patrick Chang. Patrick Chang, of course, is a well-known Hong Kong businessman and philanthropist and TV presenter, and we're very thrilled to have him with us. Okay, we've got 4 panelists. One of them is online. I'm sure you've heard of Professor Jeffrey Sachs, right? He's become a bit of a superstar recently because of he's very honest and says things that don't really fit the Western narrative line, but very honest about China and the rest of the world. And he's going to join us live from a meeting he's in Rome, Italy. So early morning for him. He's going to join us. I think he's going to speak first. Patrick, is that right? And then we're going to have 3 other panelists, also very esteemed people. Shall we bring them up? Okay, we're going to bring them all up. Okay, so please give a warm welcome to our panelists. Professor Freddie Bui, President of the City University of Hong Kong. Mrs. Betty Yuan, JP, Chairman of the Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce. And Professor Sijia Chan, Chairman of We Lab Bank Limited. Thank you. And of course, you can see on the screen there, there's Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who is, of course, he's with Columbia University, but was famous before that with Harvard University. Patrick.
Thank you, Nuri. Good afternoon, everyone. Also, a warm welcome to our online audience joining from Europe and the US. Again, my name is Patrick Zhang. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Chow Tai Fook Enterprises. It is my pleasure to be here to moderate this important discussion around business in the new world. As global enterprises continue to recover from the far-reaching impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, We find ourselves facing various challenges and uncertainties in this rapidly changing world. We all know that the world has changed. The way people live has transformed. It's almost cliche or old-fashioned to talk about the new normal. We are here with our distinguished panelists to talk about how we lead in this new business world. Putting post-COVID time behind, we are now faced with a combination of challenges: global conflicts, economic uncertainty, disrupted food, energy production, and global supply chains, all driving up costs for people around the world. Inflation and soaring inflation in many parts of the world. Consequently, the prevailing sentiment leans towards saving rather than spending, according to the latest OECD reports. Is globalization still driving prosperity? We once believed that the world is flat, that growth is enabled by cross-border trade and capital flows. But now, decoupling and de-risking has become the fancy words. Global crisis and global geopolitical tensions appeared to have reversed the benefits of globalization. As one of the leading international financial centers, Hong Kong is also especially exposed to all these challenges. We, as business people, can clearly see the consequences and challenges posed by the higher interest rate environment and the geopolitical tensions. It is truly important for us to sit down, pulling all bright minds together to discuss how we should navigate this time of transition and uncertainty. With this background, we are delighted to present a panel of distinguished and prominent speakers to explore how we can bring this vision to life, to explore how we, the business community, can develop a sustainable strategy to mitigate the potential risks and impact created by the growing complexity in the global economy. We're working together, seizing new opportunities that will define our future and give back and help our community to overcome these challenges. Please allow me to quickly introduce each of the speakers, and then I will ask each speaker to speak about 5 minutes individually, and then we'll go into some questionings, and finally, questions from the floor and the audience. First of all, online with us is Professor Jeffrey Sachs, University Professor and Director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University. Professor Sachs is also President of the UN Sustainability Development Solution Network. He has been Special Advisor to 3 United Nations Secretaries General and currently serves as one of the SDG advocates under Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He spent over 20 years at Harvard University. Also with us is Professor Freddie Bowie, President of City University of Hong Kong. Before moving to Hong Kong, Professor Bowie was Deputy President, Innovation and Enterprise at the National University of Singapore. When he was chair of the School of Materials Science and Engineering at the Nanyang Technological University, he transformed the school into a powerhouse of materials science in the world in research and education, ranking 6th in QS World Subject Ranking and 2nd in the US News and World Report ranking in materials science by 2016. Also with us is Mrs. Betty Yuen, JP, Chairman of Hong Kong General Chamber of Commerce. Mrs. Yuen began her career in public accounting in Canada. She is currently a non-executive director of CLP Holdings Limited. She also holds different public service roles, including an ex officio member of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. And last but not least, Professor K.C. Chan, Chairman of WeLab Bank Limited. Professor Chan is currently adjunct professor at HKUST Business School. He's also a director of One Country, Two System Research Institute and a member of the Competition Commission. He served as a Secretary for Financial Services and Treasury of the HKSAR government between 2007 and 2017. So now let's move on, and may I ask Professor Sachs perhaps to be our first speaker, and share your thoughts for about 5 minutes on this important topic. Thank you, Professor Sachs.
Thank you very much, Patrick. What a great honor it is to be together with this very distinguished panel. And I want to thank President Bui in particular for the incredible hospitality that City University of Hong Kong gave to me and to my wife Sonia in our recent visit, and the honor of becoming part of the CUHK family. The topic for us is leading in a time of transition, and I want to spend just a couple of minutes. What kind of transition? What is the transition? There are 3 major transitions underway which make our world quite disrupted, and I want to clarify those. First is the geopolitical transition. We're at the end of a 200-year period in which the North Atlantic region dominated the world. And that period has ended because of especially the rise of East Asia, but more generally the spread of knowledge, technology, of course, political sovereignty to a world that had been dominated by Europe first and then the United States after. We are in a new geopolitics. I personally welcome it because it means that there is more balance in the world, more fairness in the world. We are in a multipolar world, but we need to learn to live together in a multipolar world. And I believe that multipolarity under the United Nations Charter is the key. The second transformation, of course, is the technological transformation, which is accelerating, not just incredibly rapid, but accelerating. We are in the digital age, and digitalization is pervasive across every scientific discipline, every area of technology, and every part of our life. And this means disruption of jobs, of education, of production, of global value chains. On the whole, it can be extraordinarily positive, but of course it poses great challenges about rising inequality or the misuse of the new technologies or their militarization. So this is the second area that is in transition. The third great transition is ecological. We are in a deep global environmental crisis, mainly because economic growth has been so widespread for 200 years now that the cumulative weight of the world economy on our finite planet is now extraordinarily dangerous. And what it means is we need to change technologies and do that fast. Most importantly, we need to move from a fossil fuel-based energy system to a zero carbon energy system, wind, hydro, nuclear, geothermal, and so forth. And this is feasible. There are many technological roadmaps that show its feasibility, indeed its modest cost, but it's a major cooperative effort that's needed globally. So for the business world and for all of us, 3 major transformations: geopolitical, technological, and ecological. Now, what to do? I believe we need clear and global objectives, and we have them in sustainable development, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, in the Paris Climate Agreement, in the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. What all of these in total tell us is that we need to aim cooperatively to a world that is prosperous, given our know-how, that is socially inclusive, that means fair institutions and ethics, and to a world that is environmentally sustainable. And so I think we need to take our direction from these globally agreed objectives. There's a lot of work to do. universities play a critical role combined with business and government. That's why I'm so thrilled to be part of the City University of Hong Kong family, because great universities can play a great role in helping to chart the path forward. I think that in addition to a global shared agreement around the goals, we need two other things of great importance. One is true multilateralism. That means peaceful cooperation. The United States, my country, needs to learn to cooperate better because it became a bit arrogant, thinking, well, it's in charge, but it's not in charge anymore. The United States and China need to get along properly. They need to have dialogue, like I hope happens at the APEC summit with Presidents Biden and President Xi at the end of this month. We need the UN more than ever, and we see that in the current disastrous crisis in the Middle East, because only through the UN are we going to be able to establish a peaceful and fair global system. And the third thing we need is regional cooperation. For Hong Kong to have a zero-carbon energy system requires a regional approach. The Greater Bay Area, 70 million people, 9 major global cities can work together not only for the prosperity of the Greater Bay Area, but for the prosperity of the whole world, because if you put together the financial know-how and the technical know-how of Hong Kong with the incredible technological capacities throughout the Greater Bay Area, you have the makings of true global leadership. I want to see that kind of cooperation throughout East Asia, because I believe that China, Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, and the ASEAN countries really can become a world changer for the good through cooperation at the regional level. So these are my brief thoughts. Again, thank you for letting me be with you, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Back to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Professor Sachs. And thanks for reminding us that it's truly important for universities, for businesses, for governments to work together, and that we must be mindful of finding solutions that are sustainable, that are cooperative, and that are inclusive. Thank you for your comments, Professor Sachs. Maybe now we move on to Professor Bowie for your comments.
Thank you. Let me start with an interesting observation. Suppose I use one of the best ranking of universities, the THR, Times Higher Education. Do you know how many top 100 universities there are in Boston? 3. How about London? 4. Los Angeles, maybe I will add Greater Los Angeles, including Irvine. 4. You want to know which city has 5 top 100 universities in the world? Hong Kong. So now you know why I come to Hong Kong. Singapore only has 2. Running a top university is not cheap. My estimate is that all 5 of the top universities in Hong Kong probably run a budget of about 5 billion Hong Kong dollars. That's a pretty big listed company. And it has a huge impact, because universities are not in the business of making money. It's great if we can make money, but that's not the aim. We make things, we make people that makes the economy bigger and better. It's a powerhouse. While it's expensive, you cannot afford not to have good universities in any given city, more so in a city like Hong Kong. I came because I have great optimism for the society and the city of Hong Kong. I believe that moving ahead, all 5 universities and the other 3 smaller universities together has a very critical role to play in mapping out the future of Hong Kong. I think that as a society, we could move forward. You don't drive a car looking at the rearview mirror all the time. You want to look at the front. I'm very optimistic that in the game of talent attraction, Hong Kong will do well. It has a lot of inherent advantages in the mid to long term, and I think we'll get over the hump, and then we will really power on. And that's the reason why I'm very optimistic about Hong Kong during this transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Bowie. We share your enthusiasm and your confidence in Hong Kong as well as in the education sector as a whole for the global economy. Maybe now we move on to Mrs. Yun. Betty, if you can share your thoughts with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this forum. It's very timely for us to have this discussion about the transition pressures that we are faced with. I agree entirely with Professor Sack about the three transitional trends. And for the business community, we feel it every single day because it affects our businesses from all directions. The geopolitics, Hong Kong has our strength as the superconnector, and we benefit significantly over the last few decades, being the superconnector in particular between the West and the East. And when the geopolitics change and become a more bipolar world, then of course many of our businesses are being affected heads-on. You know, we can all feel in the financial sector that a lot of the funds have left Hong Kong, and of course a lot of our trade businesses are adversely affected. For the technology transition, I think every single boardroom or even SMEs, you cannot avoid having this important subject to be an integral part of your business strategy, because you will be so left behind if you are not embracing technology, whether it's in the way you manage your assets or the way you manage your processes and the people skills that are required to bring the business forward. On the ecological transition, my company is in the power industry, and we actually one of the first company in Asia Pacific to have a carbon reduction commitment. We issue our manifesto in 2007, committing a roadmap to how to decarbonize. Now, over the last 10 years or so, especially after the Paris Agreement, I think we feel very much the accelerated pace, not only for industries like ourselves in the power sector, which obviously is core to our business, that we have to decarbonize, clear roadmap of how to embrace clean energy, renewable energy. But we see this trend affecting almost all industries. We have the financial sector making commitments not to lend money to companies that are involved in not so clean industries. We have the insurance companies not agreeing to insure coal assets, and all, even in consumer sectors, being green is such an important part of the branding that you cannot sell your products or your services if you are not seen to be clean. And we are seeing a lot of our clients committing to buying our renewable energy, especially in China. A lot of them, multinational companies, committing to buying our renewable energy for 20 years to make sure they meet their own KPIs internally. So, and I think these are all good, because if you rely on just the government to set targets, that will be too late. But if the business community, because of the customers' expectation, it's embracing green technologies, green ways of doing things, it will make the transition faster and better. And in Hong Kong, going back to how are we going to adjust ourselves during this period of transition, I think we have actually wasted a lot of time, Hong Kong, over the last 25 years, embroiled in a lot of internal arguments on politics. And I think now it's the time for us to turn a new page and focus on our economic development, especially during this time of fast changes, how to get our acts together to make up for the lost time. And I think our leaders, our government leaders during this administration have very clear roadmap of how to develop our infrastructure like the North Metropolis, how to make the best use of the integration with the Greater Bay Area, really offers a lot of opportunities for us to get upstream on the value chain rather than in the prior years where we focus more on the low end of the value chain. So all the innovation and technology sector, and I agree with Professor Bowie that I'm very confident about our ability to attract talents because Hong Kong still has a lot of advantages over other cities in the region. But having said that, we cannot be complacent. We are able to attract the talents. We also have to make sure that our own talents, they are well equipped and well prepared for the new world. The being agile, being technology savvy, and be able to cope with all the many changes the environment requires. And then clean technologies, I think, is another area that Hong Kong can find a niche. You know, green financing, we are in a good position to be ahead of the curve in terms of setting ESG standards, attracting talents, and be able to take our economy forward under the new environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Betty. And thanks for reminding us never to be complacent, but we also share your enthusiasm for Hong Kong and for our business leaders in terms of maintaining Hong Kong's super connector role, in terms of making sure that we remain adaptable, and then all the focus around ESG and decarbonization. I think we all as business leaders must keep in mind. Thank you for that. Now we move on to Professor Chan. Thank you.
Well, you asked for my thought about the major trends, right? So after hearing all the three panelists, I'm not so sure I have anything to add. But let me focus on maybe one or two that is very close to my heart. The first one would be that we really have to re-emphasize, strengthen the role of Hong Kong as an international financial market, especially in a context of one country, two systems. How Hong Kong financial market can continue to serve the development of our motherland. I think that's very important. And that would mean that not only Hong Kong has to strengthen our own financial institutions, but we must reach out to the rest of the world, as we have been doing the last couple of years. And also we will have to work closely with central government on new policy and initiatives that will be enabling the country to open up and reform. And Hong Kong should be that center of financial market development to support the country development. I think that's very important. We have done well in the past, but given the new geopolitical reality, we may have to work harder and closer with the government, central government, to do that. And second thing I think we should really remember and emphasize is we must go out. We must reach out to our neighboring economies. Of course, the Greater Bay Area is one of the central places that we should continue developing, but I would see that we have to go out to Southeast Asia to expand our presence. And I think this is, I regard it to be very important and almost urgent that we do that. Of course, I can give you a little perspective from a very small company that I'm serving on. I'm serving as a WeLab Bank chairman. The WeLab company itself was founded 10 years ago in Hong Kong as a startup. We are a fintech company. We have some business in China, some business in Hong Kong, but we're a very small company. But when we are looking at our future vision of the company, we see that we must be in Southeast Asia in order to sustain ourselves. It's not because we're pursuing a dream, but we think that as a strategy, we must be out there. to maximize the chance of us to be sustainable and receptive by the market. So 2 years ago, we basically raised together with a strong partner in Indonesia, Astra, which is one half of the company, one half of the joint venture. We raised $500 million US. We let bank, our consortium take a half, and then Astra take another half. We bought a bank in Indonesia and turned that into a digital bank. That digital bank just opened for business a few days ago. Now, for a small company in Hong Kong, thinking about doing that is quite amazing, in my opinion. But what I'm saying is that we have to think about that, because if we are not going out there, if we are not broadening up, if we are not exporting Hong Kong talent and expertise outside, we have nowhere to go. We got nowhere to go. So I think a major trend for Hong Kong, besides emphasizing our financial market, is going out and be cooperating with other people, partnering up with good partners, and make Hong Kong influence felt. And in the process, we are also learning more about the other economies.
Thank you very much, Professor. Clearly, the topic of collaboration or cooperation is a very important one. And maybe with that, it's a good segue back to the panel and maybe back to Professor Sachs in Rome joining us. I know global cooperation, collaboration is something that is near and dear to your heart. But I want to zone in a little bit more to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Professor Sachs, I think you've mentioned new politics for sustainable development should be based on peaceful global cooperation. And this year marks the 10th anniversary of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Now, according to the policy address made by Chief Executive Mr. John Lee last month, Hong Kong will further expand our reach into Belt and Road markets, which include ASEAN, the Middle East, Central Asia, and Africa, setting up additional offices for business and organizing more missions with Hong Kong and mainland enterprises to promote business opportunities for our professional services. With all the effort to enhance connectivity and understanding, Professor Sachs, do you see this as a way to drive sustainable development together? How can businesses grasp this opportunity?
I am a great fan of the Belt and Road Initiative. I think it's one of the most important initiatives in the world and an extremely positive one. And what it aims to do, of course, is to create infrastructure connectivity throughout the greatest landmass of the world, Eurasia, but also throughout the Indian Ocean region to East Africa, and indeed throughout Africa, and also Latin America. It's a very big and bold initiative. Of course, Hong Kong should play a huge role in helping to design, finance, implement the hundreds of billions of dollars of infrastructure programs that will be part of the next decade of the Belt and Road Initiative. So the third summit of BRI, which was just completed a couple of weeks ago, reaffirmed China's commitment to BRI, indeed to an expansion of BRI. One of the main themes was that BRI should be building truly 21st century sustainable infrastructure. So that means green and digital. It means fast rail. It means long distance zero carbon power transmission. China specializes in high voltage direct current transmission over long distances. It means 5G, which will soon be 6G. I was very happy to see this morning a new report of yet a new digital breakthrough by engineers at Tsinghua University producing a new chip using light. It's the all analog chip combining electronics and light that SMIC is producing, which is apparently 3,000 times faster than the NVIDIA chip. It's still a lot to develop, but the point is there's a tremendous amount of investment ahead, and Hong Kong is the world's center for connecting regions through investment. So I was very happy to hear also what Professor Chan said. Do reach out to ASEAN. Use the Belt and Road Initiative for these investments. The Greater Bay Area is one of the core innovative hubs of the entire world now. Hong Kong is a gateway to the world. I'm sure that everyone in policy throughout China understands the unique contribution that Hong Kong does play and will play in all of this. So I'm very encouraged and do think that BRI is a central feature for success and in which Hong Kong has a major leadership role.
Thank you, Professor Sachs. And it's certainly very encouraging, right, to see through the BRI initiatives the three themes that you mentioned right up front in your comments around geopolitical considerations, around technological innovation, and of course the ecological part, right, what we must be focusing on. So thank you for your comments. Maybe we now move on to Professor Bowie. Professor, you talked about talent as a critical factor, and certainly you've been teaching in universities in Singapore, and now you're president of City University in Hong Kong. What are some of the unique opportunities that you see young talent may enjoy in Hong Kong? And what can be done differently from the university's perspective to support talent in the city?
Yeah, so I think it's important to understand the critical role of a top university in a given region or especially city. I think many people think, and maybe it's not wrong until recently, that the role of the university, as you said, is to support industry. You can say that if there are 500 universities around the world, they probably do that kind of things. You start the industry, we'll produce young talent to support you, make things cheaper, operate it, and maintain it. But in the world that we live in today, it's definitely not enough. And I would say that why did I mention the top 100 universities in different cities? Very simple. Because these are the universities that do not just support, but they create industries. They lead. They do not follow industries. There are many things in the future that industries look at and think, maybe I'm coming there. But then in the university itself, you're developing people that are right up there. The gap, of course, is translating research into commercialization. Hong Kong is very privileged. You have 5 world-class universities. Why would a Hong Kong young person not stay in Hong Kong? Right? Because he has the opportunity not just to support industry. He has the opportunity to create new things, develop new industries, never heard before. Professor Chan just mentioned one, so-called little startup. Look what's happened today. Southeast Asia, 600 million people. And little Hong Kong with 8 million can positively influence and impact over 600 million. That's the power of startup companies. So coming back to City University, you know, we will produce brilliant students. But can I say that clever students have many colors? And passing great exams in a great way is one thing. But creating students who have the dare enough to go forward and create new things, engineers who not only know how to repair, but to invent, create new products, I think that will be the name of the game for Hong Kong. So City U is gearing itself. You might hear some more news in the next couple of months, pushing our boundary in innovation. We've done well in Hong Kong Tech 300, but I'm going on to Hong Kong Tech 300 3.0. We'll skip 2.0. And we will produce young people who does not just have a job, but they will create jobs. I think that's very important to understand. Maybe one last comment. It's interesting to compare Shenzhen and Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley, in one sense, is a happy accident, starting from Stanford University. Even Stanford itself, if you know the story, is a bit of an accident. But when it started, it created the whole ecosystem from which world-class industries came out that you'd never heard before previously. Shenzhen is different. Shenzhen was very planned, very deliberate, and of course Hong Kong entrepreneurs played a key role at the birth of the Shenzhen industry. But look what's happening now. In Silicon Valley, they attract companies to the university. In Shenzhen, if I draw a line from Hangzhou, the northern part, that's where more of the top universities in China are. Industry are not going up north. Universities are coming down south. Why? Because the cycle of technology is already so short, the universities are not coping with this short span. We have to move, we as the university have to learn to move at the speed of light. But we are big creatures, and sometimes we take the leisure of creating new things in 10 years. It's not enough. So in short, I'm putting CDU on steroids. We need to move so fast that we then can exceed the speed of technology change and lead industries. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Professor Bowie, for turbocharging our effort and for reminding us that we must focus on doing amazing things. Thank you for that. Maybe we quickly transition to Mrs. Yun, to Betty. Let's talk about role of Hong Kong and good corporate citizenship. Other than the challenging external environment, I believe the general public's expectation on businesses today is also changing, expecting businesses to do good to society, including giving back to our community, showing commitment on solving bigger issues such as climate change and others. How is it going to change the way businesses operate to achieve sustainable growth? Are there any personal experience that you can share with us?
I think for our company, CLP, this has always been one of our fundamental values. Perhaps because we are a utility, we are a monopoly. Therefore, we always felt that our social license comes from the people trusting us. And therefore, it had always been one of our values that we give back to the society, that we have harmony with our society. So to us, it's not too much of a transition. But we actually believe it is a good thing for all businesses because you can see the downside of supreme capitalism in some countries, that you can see the wealth gap between the haves and the have-not. When it gets so wide that it actually causes disruption to the whole society, and that is not good for anyone. So for businesses to be able to find ways to give back to the society with harmony, I think is actually good for everyone. And in recent years, as I discussed earlier, that the climate change pressure is so big that almost all consumers, and in particular the younger generation, place a lot of priority on environmental performances for all businesses, whether it is like the dirty industry like us in the power sector, the transportation industry, like people converting to using electric vehicles, or even consumer goods. How green you are is a very important part of the customer's choices. And I think it is a good thing. And then it's not only the way we conduct our business, but also give back to the society, helping the underprivileged in different ways. And we have so many innovative programs by corporates, whether to help the young people, the elderly people, or some underprivileged sectors of the society. And I think it has to be, it's a good trend so that we can find a right balance in the society.
Thank you very much. Maybe we go on to Professor Chan, and I want to go back to technology and finance. Clearly, Professor Chan, you've mentioned how important technology is in terms of revolutionizing the way how business is done in today's market. If we zoom into banking and finance, what is your view on Hong Kong's fintech development? How can this bring new opportunities for companies in Hong Kong?
I think Hong Kong has done very well. I don't agree with many people who think Hong Kong is slow in fintech. I think Hong Kong itself is a very mature, sophisticated, well-regulated financial market to begin with. And so we are building financial technology on such strong base. And that's very different from when you're doing fintech in other emerging markets where you might have a rapid development or rapid adoption. I think Hong Kong has done very well because the fintech approach in Hong Kong has been trying to make it easy for customers to get financial services and make it easy make it less costly to provide such services for the banks. And I think overall, I think he has done very well. I regard Hong Kong as one of the key centers of fintech around the world. Now, but Hong Kong actually is also quite innovative. When you hear about the new policy coming out from the government, we're experimenting with virtual assets. We're experimenting with a green finance tech. There are a lot of things that the government is really planning, and I'm well supportive of. I think on the basis of very good regulation, Hong Kong can do more. And then the ultimate goal of fintech is to bring technology to finance to benefit the economy and consumers. I think we are doing that. We are just fine. Now, why is Hong Kong enjoying a good position for doing that? Of course, I mentioned the regulation. I mentioned the culture here. Of course, we also have very good technology. We have good tech people both here and the Greater Bay Area. And a lot of us using Greater Bay Area as our technology base. So I think it is very possible, very likely for us to export this know-how outside of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is too small a market for fintech. I always emphasize. But when you look around, there are a lot of other countries who love to work with Hong Kong on innovation and technology, and this is where our future should lie.
Thank you very much, Professor Chan, for reminding us the importance of seeking out, right, and forming partnerships. I just want to do a quick time check with our organizers. Do we still have time for Q&A in the crowd, or?
Yes, indeed. In fact, we have some questions have been sent in. You can see we have QR codes up there for people to send in questions. So these are the questions that have been sent in. Patrick, perhaps you'd like to
Thank you, Nuri. Thank you, Nuri. Okay, so the first question. After the pandemic, how did global business models change? Should we go to Professor Sachs first, since you're online, or comments around how global business models have changed because of the pandemic?
Well, I think the pandemic per se did not so much change business models, except it got everybody on Zoom and changed value chains to be much more digital and the work environment to be mixed digital and face-to-face. But I think geopolitics is quickly changing the way business is done. I plead that it does not divide the world, so we need the cooperation, which I keep emphasizing. But I do want to mention, especially in regard to the superb comments both by Betty Yuan and Professor Chan, that the expansion of the BRICS countries, which will now be 11 countries with about 37% of world output measured at international prices compared to just 30% of the G7, means an additional role for Hong Kong as a financier in non-dollar settlements, perhaps in much more internationalized yuan, perhaps in new BRICS basket currencies and so forth. I think there will be a lot of innovation coming. This is the commitment of the BRICS that by this coming year there are some non-dollar payments mechanisms, and I think Hong Kong should be a leader in innovation in this area as well, and it will be a very fruitful area of fintech.
Thank you, Professor Sachs. I guess, Betty, would you have further comments in terms of how corporates have changed?
I think consistent with what Professor Sachs said, is actually more the geopolitics than COVID per se that is affecting the business models, and we are seeing the supply chain, the American and the European businesses trying to what they call de-risking, and therefore affecting the exports of China. And so we are seeing some migration of manufacturing businesses to Southeast Asia. And so it affects both the China economy as well as Hong Kong, because we are the middleman for the most part. So I agree with Professor Chen that Hong Kong also needs to reach out more to other new markets. Southeast Asian markets, I think we can put in more efforts to explore new business opportunities, and the Middle East is also a very important part. Of course, all these new markets will take time to see real fruition, but I think we have to work on those. On a more smaller scale, I think not so much in Hong Kong or on the mainland, but we know that in the Western world, work from home has become a much bigger demand by the workforce that is affecting businesses in the way that business have to be conducted, accommodate the work population's demand of working from home for maybe 50% of the time, which has an impact on the efficiency of the workforce. And these are the things that the business community has to find ways to accommodate and adjust to.
Thank you, Betty, for your comments. We have a good one here, which is what would be your advice to younger audience or young entrepreneurs out there? And maybe I start with Professor Bowie.
I think given some hiccups, the center of gravity for things really happening moved from Europe to US, and so the talent followed. It's coming back to the East. And I think our young people need to know that the excitement is right here now. I mean, 15 years ago when I'm in Silicon Valley, I have several startup companies there. Nobody talks about this part of the world. You draw a 1 kilometer radius and all the VCs are only interested in that kind of places. A few years ago, just before the pandemic, I'm starting to hear that there's some interest in coming over to this side of the world. So if I was a young person, I would say that look a couple of years ahead when you are in your 40s and 50s. Where would you like to be? And I would not be surprised you land back in this part of the world.
Thank you, Professor Bowie. I'm mindful of time, so the last question, which is also a very good one, maybe I'll ask Professor Chan, is our topic is leading in a time of transition. And we emphasize a lot on the positive side. But the question is, what keeps you up at night? What are you worried about, right, in this time of transition?
Well, certainly, this is not an easy time for anybody. I have to say that myself, I'm sure some of my friends are worried about a lot of the macro trends that affect this little part of the world. We are part of the whole ecosystem. So when you have the political tension, the war, the trade war, the interest rate, the finance, everything. I mean, I think the last 1 or 2 years, we probably experienced more shocks than ever, through many decades. But I think on the other hand, this is a lot of course, it's very challenging times. It may keep you awake some night, but on the other hand, you get used to it. You get used to it, and you have to try to deal with it. I think dealing with it positively is the right way to think about it.
Thank you, Professor Chan. And we've certainly kept Professor Sachs up at night because of this conference. And maybe final comments, Professor Sachs, right, in terms of what worries you or when you think about the global situation.
I think it's obvious we have enough to worry about, but it's also obvious that there is a tremendous energy and new direction for really building things, and I think the panel exemplifies it. So I want to and not with my worries, but with my hopes, and say thank you to inviting me to this wonderful panel and so much wisdom of my fellow panelists that I listened to today.
Thank you everyone, and thank you the panelists for joining us today. We would definitely remind ourselves of the enthusiasm that we need to maintain and turbocharge our effort in terms of making sure that Hong Kong remains at the forefront, and we must remember decarbonization, all the sustainability issues as we charge forward. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Patrick, to our panelists too. Thank you. May I ask you to please stand together at the front for the obligatory group photograph, of course. Thank you, and please stay for another moment, because Professor Hu would like to hand you some certificates to thank you for your participation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You can sit down. And of course, a big thank you to Professor Sachs. It's actually, it was 7 a.m. in the morning in his hotel bedroom in Rome when we contacted him. So he did look wide awake, didn't he? So, well done there. Okay, now it's time for our second and final panel, which will be on a theme of technology, and specifically AI. The panel is called Opportunity, Governance and Ethics in AI Development. And may I invite to the stage our moderator, Professor Whitman Hung.
Good. Thank you, Nuri. I would first like to invite my panelists. Professor Xiaofang Zhou, Chair Professor and Head of Department of Computer Science and Engineering of the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. Mr. Nick Chan, Director of AALCO, Hong Kong Regional Arbitration Center, and my very close friend. Professor Helen Meng, Patrick Hun Wing Ming, Professor of Systems Engineering and Engineering Management of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. And last but not the least, Mr. Michael Gaisley, Managing Director of Network Box Corporation. Please. Okay, please sit down. I was given this task of moderating this panel. And, you know, interesting thing, we have two professors. We have an IT lawyer, and then we have a very old IT veteran of my age. So I had to prepare some questions, but before that I just, you know, start with, you know, what is AI? You know, we're talking about AI here, right? Kate Crawford, professor of USC, in her book in 2021, she wrote that artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligence. Okay, I think the same word has been spoken by Jack Ma before as well. So maybe I'll start with, you know, I've known Helen for more than 10 years, and she was always in AI. I think one of the pioneers in AI in Hong Kong. So what do you think? Is it artificial intelligence, or is it not?
Thank you, Whitman, and really a great pleasure to be here. So many thanks to our organizers. So in fact, indeed, I have been working in the area of AI for quite a while. I must say that in the early days when I was a student, many of us who are working in some branch of AI didn't want to say that we are working on AI, because you won't get a job if you declare that you work on AI. In the early days, we use a lot of heuristics. We try to understand the physical world and try to capture those in human-generated heuristics in the models. But increasingly, as time goes by, we now have big data, we have powerful computing. So we're able to use powerful machine learning algorithms to capture trends in data. So in fact, our models now are very quote-unquote intelligent because they can simulate the physical world based on the data very well. So in many tasks in our field, we often say, oh, the AI models are reaching human parity, such as in speech recognition, my home area, machine translation, or question answering, or even speech synthesis. Being able to generate synthetic content like human speech that sounds very human if you're not listening very closely. And also, of course, generating images that even avatar, these synthetic faces that very, very, very much look like a real human. So to that extent, I think for sure it's artificial, it's man-made, but it's quite intelligent. However, there are still quite some ways between what AI can do today and what human intelligence can do.
Thank you, Helen. I remember the old Turing test, right? And when we were young, we were taught that the Turing test can, if you can't tell on the other end of the line, it is a machine or a human, then it has rich artificial intelligence. I think we have way gone past that, but I'm still not sure when that is actually a correct or right measurement. Professor Zhou, you're a data scientist, right? And what do you think?
Okay, you just mentioned the Turing test. So that's a test in a paper by Alan Turing about 70 years ago. So it's very simple. Whether you can tell this is pass the test is that you talk to a machine. You don't see it, ask questions, and the machine will respond to your questions. And if 30% of people, right, cannot tell this is a machine or it's a human being, this is intelligence. They pass that. But that actually, people start to question about this Turing test. Number one, has this many recent progresses, the machines pass Turing test? The answer is yes, right? And in some special cases, but with ChatGPT, right? People in general, you talk to a machine powered by ChatGPT, they get a response. You think it's human. Sometimes this is actually very good human. He's an expert, right? But that brings us to the definition of intelligence. Is that the only way to understand the natural language? Is that the way they can answer like human being? Or there are other aspects of human intelligence? Emotions, creativity, there are many other things, right? So I think there's with the time goes by, our understanding of artificial intelligence improves, and with technology progresses, our expectation about artificial intelligence also increased quite a bit. We are toward the right direction, and we certainly passed the Turing test, but we are not really reaching this intelligence stage yet.
Thank you, Professor. I once asked ChatGPT, who is Whitman Hung. He gave me a very long-winded answer with maybe about 5% accuracy. But it looks very much like a very articulated human answering the question. He actually said, I founded the Metro Radio in the 1970s, which I don't know where it created this, but this is called seriously bullshitting. That was what we were talking about in our circle. Generative AI, very good at seriously bullshitting. So what do you think, Michael?
Well, actually, on that point, it's quite interesting. In the USA, recently a lawyer got in a lot of trouble because he got artificial intelligence to basically cite cases and things that ended up, they didn't exist, right? So people are starting to try and use this. And I think the Turing test is an interesting point because it's clever enough now, AI, to fool us that it seems real, but it's far from real at this moment in time. I also think it's kind of ironic that in 2023 we reached a point where, you know, you've got computers that can pass off as being humans, but you've got a lot of humans now who can't pass off as being human. I mean, I think that, you know, the world is changing a lot, and, you know, we need to really look at the direction that the AI is going. Because on a serious note, I think that there are the seeds of our own destruction within AI.
So, last but not the least, our lawyer here. Have you ever used AI to cite any cases?
Well, am I supposed to? Well, I mean, there are real-life cases where a judge has been reprimanded for using generative AI to write a judgment, where they quoted decisions that didn't exist or copied someone else's decision.
In Hong Kong or elsewhere?
The copying decision was in Hong Kong.
Okay.
The misquoting was in the US. But I'm sure there are many other cases that we haven't seen. But I must correct that. Firstly, there are 3 professors here. Professor Whitman is also a professor. Because it's an afternoon show, what he meant by an animal doing a certain act is not meant to be a vulgarity, I'm sure. Now, artificial intelligence is not universally defined. So I think I'm getting the gist that as time moves on, as technology moves on, the definition changes as well. I remember a discussion with women earlier that when generative AI first came out, ChatGPT first came out, I think the conclusion is, well, this is weak AI. This is not artificial general intelligence. But if I were to try to define what is AI, I would say the science of mimicking what an intelligent being does. Also, it could be, you know, one day having that conscious being, feeling, and all that. But we are far from there, and I think there's a lot of work to do. And in the midst of it, we have to look into a lot of ethical issues around the world. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. On that note, let me jump to ethics. So, you know, AI is actually helping us to do a lot of decision making these days. You know, there are certain, I mean, in the finance market, for example, AI is making a lot of the investment decisions. Soon, you know, it may go into other things. Do you think one day we may have AI, you know, making decisions in court?
I guess that's meant for me.
And then hospitals, you know, these are 2 of the most, I think, serious application of decision, you know, making.
Right, squash court, basketball court. But in the world of legal courts, yes, in the sense of AI are already preparing judgments for a lot of courts around the world. But it isn't replacing a real judge today. And it's basically coming up with a draft. I mean, if you look at law are meant to be applied uniformly, so you can expect the results, so that if you know the law, you dissect into logic, you kind of know at the end of the day where you might end up with case law. So it fits well to use logic, and therefore it fits well to use AI to come up with an initial draft, so that a judge walk into the courtroom, he can already, or he or she, that person can already say, I'm missing this piece of information to at least fill out a well-rounded judgment. But of course, that person is expected to listen. So there are a lot of these around. And there are, for example, in New Zealand, as I understand, when you dispute a traffic ticket, there are websites you can go to, services you can use using AI to teach you how to challenge the ticket. And the adjudication could actually come out with AI. It doesn't involve a human. And in the Beijing Internet Court today, there are at least 11 areas that I'm aware of, like domain name dispute, some e-commerce dispute, things that are really closer to e-commerce, online digital world, that the decision is made by AI.
Wonderful. So, you know, before generative AI was so popular, we always thought AI is mostly rule-basis. So therefore, one of these things that I would love to see is in a court of law, when you have a machine making the judgment, which means there's no sentiment, okay? But of course, I don't know, wait until that day. Maybe Helen, what do you think? You know, AI, you've been in AI for decades, right? So what do you think about AI making decisions in the current world where normally a human is making such judgments? Would they be replaced, or would they be, you know, all or some of them? Like court of law is just one of them, but you know, hospitals is another one, others.
Yeah, thank you, Whitman. So I actually think it depends on what kind of decisions we're talking about. For example, about a decade ago, I was working on computer-aided language learning, okay, and computer-aided pronunciation training. Basically, we want to be able to support our students so that their English pronunciation, the proficiency, can be raised. And we find that it's not easy, it's not too scalable if we rely solely on classroom-based teaching, because even though CUHK has invested a lot in English language training for all our students, what pronunciation training needs is constant practice and immersive training, right? So therefore, the dream at that time is to develop some kind of a computerized teaching assistant, so that you can speak to your computer and it'll say, oh, you know, for this pronunciation, you got this phone not quite right, and this is where you need to enhance, right? So then that led us into pronunciation scoring. And then it occurred to me that if I were an English teacher and I have to listen to all the students in my class very carefully in terms of their pronunciation, that is a laborious process. What we can do to help the teacher is to use our algorithms, and then we'll ask all our students to speak, you know, whatever sentence or utterance they like, and then we score them. And if the scores are really low, then we just straight up reject them. And there will be no hard feelings, right? Then the teacher won't tell a student, look, you know, you're really pronouncing horribly, right? That would be bad. But now you ask the algorithm to say, okay, this is a very low score, so you better practice this segment again and again, right? So that is where you can use totally automatic decisions. But more recently, I've begun to work on AI and health. And I can imagine, even though I don't work directly on surgery, let's imagine there's someone who may need surgery, right? And you need someone to, you need an expert, a medical expert, to sign his or her name off in terms of deciding what kind of surgery. So would you rely on AI to do that? Probably not, right? I think it depends on the kind of decision that needs to be made. I think automation certainly has its advantages, but we need to use it carefully. Thank you.
Thank you. I just thought about who will buy the professional negligence insurance for a computer if it's actually doing the surgery. Michael, you know, another key decision making for that AI is still not legal in Hong Kong, but being practiced elsewhere. It's autonomous driving. Okay, so autonomous cars. So who should program them? You know, what do you think about this? You know, giving your potentially life, you know, to a machine.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a very, very interesting question, which is actively being worked on by some of the best minds in the world right now. Because the problem is, in an autonomous car, you can end up in a situation where the car knows it's going to have to kill somebody, so does it swerve this way or that way? And with the internet, with high-speed CPUs, facial recognition, you get to the point where you can actually say, well, okay, that guy's 77, he's got no children, that guy's a surgeon. You know, I mean, what do you do? And I'm not sure even with a whole army of humans spending months discussing it, you could make that decision. But that autonomous car, sometimes, probably not even that many years hence, is going to have to make that decision. And that is frightening, really.
That's really frightening. That is one of those things I remember this book called Justice, right? It talks about this decision being made. It's an ethical decision. So should we allow machines to make ethical decisions? Maybe change the topic a little bit. Professor Zhou, we're talking about allowing students to use AI these days in the university. There's been a debate earlier on, but now I think at least UST is allowing. So then if they do use AI in preparing their homework and essays and things like that, without notifying you, it's very hard to actually find out, right? So what do you think? How to solve this this kind of, detecting this kind of plagiarism or fraud or?
Okay, since ChatGPT, right, was released in actually exactly 1 year ago, November last year, a lot of people say, should we allow our students to use that at all? And then if you try what ChatGPT can do, you really get worried. You give a topic, and they write an essay for you, they are so good. And then later, recently, we do a lot of programming courses, right, for our students. And they give the students, hey, this is a problem, and you are supposed to use Python or this language, and they actually write a code for you. Actually, pretty good code, right? So what do? I know some universities initially banned students using that. HKUST certainly was one of the first university embrace this approach. We had a lot of internal studies. We checked with the professors, say, should we allow people to do that? Clearly, this is a trend. We need to let students to use it, but how do you deal with all these kind of things? Be copied, automatically generated, right? I can take an example. First, you cite a lot of other literatures, and you should do the same. If this is generated by ChatGPT, you should cite it. And then we also do a little bit further right now. This semester, we allow our students to use ChatGPT, these kind of things, in programming courses. So when they write a program, they need to tell us, this one is generated using certain software, ChatGPT, for example, and you also need to tell us what's the prompt you use, what question you use, and how do you refine that. And that's actually a new skill we are going to use. We're not supposed to have every student writing this basic code. We have a lot of libraries already available, right? They can use that, and you do more creative things. And now what we need to do is to train our students being able to use it. And what's the prompt things we're going to use? How do we verify that, right? And of course, there are many research recently tried to automatically detect what kind of code are generated. We are not really relying on that. We rely on people to declare and explain the process and their learning experiences.
Thank you. Yeah, I was once a programmer. So, but I look at some, no longer a programmer now, but I did look at some of the codes they generated. Yes, it's perfect. It's easy to use, and it achieves exactly what you need to achieve according to the prompt. But this is, I think the analogy is when I was a kid, there was before the DSE, we still have the Hong Kong school cert exam. There's this debate about allowing the use of calculators. Remember? Scientific calculators for the science, cosines, and all those things. So I remember what happened is some of the exams you're not allowed to bring a calculator. There are some specific exams you're allowed to bring them. So demonstrate your skill of both doing the calculation without and the reasons without a calculator, but also demonstrate your skill of using a scientific calculator. So I think this is similar these days. So change the topic a little bit, but similar because we talk about ChatGPT and there was this argument on copyright. I remember Nick is actually a copyright lawyer. So there were two court cases I remember. One is in the States where there was a judge ruling that this guy who created a cartoon book, that the dialogues that he wrote were his copyright, but the images are not because they're generated by AI. But then there was another, I can't remember where, but judges where one guy created some not very good images using AI, and he was actually sued for, and convicted for creating such images. So, what do you see? How do you deal with the copyright issue in this area?
Thank you, Whitman. Well, copyright is all. I think we all agree it's a universal issue. The international laws like the Berne Convention generally setting out how we recognize copyright without the need to necessarily register the copy with an authority. However, it's really about there are a lot of issues in this. But in terms of cases you mentioned, they are, as lawyers always say, if you want to find out the answer, it's fact specific. Give me all the facts, I'll tell you the answer. But the reason is because the issue is whether, generally copyright require an original element. An author that sort of put his or her or that person's idea into creation. So if that person is using a generative AI program to come up with a work product, can that person own it? Or why should they not own it just because they use a new tool? A new tool being not just a pen and pencil or computer, but a computer supported by a program, namely a particular type of brand of generative AI. Why can't they? So there are actually cases in mainland China, for example, where I think Tencent company used AI to come up with a original art piece, and someone else copied them, and Tencent successfully, subsidiary successfully sued that this other company copied them. But to say they copied them, you have to, basically the court have the rule, you own the authorship first, you own the copyright before you can sue somebody. But can a machine, not being human, have this right that some laws around the world tend to word it so that only a human, implying only a human being can own that right? Is it intrinsic that an inanimate object can own such a right? So that's raising new issues. But are there other issues like, well, if you use your resources, time, energy, come up with it, part of it is purely human, part of it is not, it's with computer. And just like if I use the calculator for part of the calculation, but I designed it with my ingenuity, why can't I have that copyrighted? So I think that left a lot to be answered, but if we are to embrace it fully, we are more open-minded that this is a tool, and if used properly under some parameters, then we should be able to attract a lot of generative AI developers to base their operations in the GBA in Hong Kong and expand to the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because I remember that court case in U.S. that the defendant actually argued because he created the prompts and it's unique. But still, I think it was the court still ruled that he lost. But anyway, we're still at the beginning of this. But on that topic, people are really talking about. I think there was a recent pledge of people like even the founders of OpenAI and things like that, saying we should have rules governing AIs. We should have controls. And mainland China has already published a list of points of control on AI development. So, why are the others lagging? Mr. Professor Chow, maybe you can talk about this.
Okay. We're talking about AI governance. So we actually have two things very clear. First, we see the value of AI tools. It's really helping us to do things. And we are a little bit scared. They can do so many things, right? And we worry about what kind of other things maybe we don't want them to do, so we need to have a set of rules to govern that. But this is not really a new problem. When we have a big data, right, in data science, my own research area, people see so much data can be used, and when we combine, so powerful, and then people start to worry. And actually, data governance has been around for a long time, right? So the reason I think mainland China leading this area is that they already have, they're a major player in AI area. They're one of the biggest country in terms of adopting AI technology, and also they have going through a whole process from data governance and naturally now to AI governance. But if for talking about Hong Kong, AI governance, what should we do? My view is that we still, first of all, need to make sure that AI is useful. We develop AI tools can solve our real problems, right? So for that, HKUST really want to be a hub for AI research. Since ChatGPT was released last year, we have been working with Hong Kong government to convince Hong Kong government that we need to do same thing in Hong Kong. So we are fortunate to have this Hong Kong project with Helen and many other local universities. We really believe we want to start from data collection, data filtering, data quality management, go through the entire training process, go to the vertical domains, and make sure it's useful. And then from there, we can develop into this governance aspects step by step. But at the same time, we really fully appreciate the importance of AI governance. What we do, we will have in December in Hong Kong, Tsinghua and HKUST, we will have an AI governance forum. It will be a very big one. We expect about 800 people coming to Hong Kong with academic leaders like Turing Award winner. We just secured Joshua Benju, who is the father of deep learning, father of AI, and with chief AI officers, chief ethics officers from Meta, from LinkedIn, from many other companies, and also a lot of government minister officials from the United Nations and so on. So that's where we really think two things we need to do in parallel. One is we really need to have a good debate about AI governance, and another thing is we need to develop end-to-end solution to make sure AI actually is useful. And when we use it, we can see more problems to make governance more concrete.
Well, on the policy speech of John Lee just a few days, last month, but it's actually a few days ago, he did mention about this trying to doing data governance and data security new laws, because it's not there yet. We don't have any of those. Nick, as a lawyer, maybe you can add some comments?
Sure. I would first say, as a country, China, we're recognizing the need to lead change, leading in a time of transition, right? So one of the things we need to do ought to be to look at, after the first three industrial revolution, we need the fourth industrial revolution, which is AI, big data, smart data, to help drive that growth, economic growth, right? Drive that transition, drive that change. So as we do that, we've been focusing on this for, I guess, since 2013, or even around that time, where we're really getting quite strong. So as a country, we already issued measures, laws by 2017, and then more in 2019, more in 2021. So much so that, even today, November 2nd, where, the Safe AI forums happening, summit is happening in the UK, a lot of the debate rhetorics are basically, from what I can see, following what China already passed into laws and regulations about transparency, shouldn't be biased, important decisions shouldn't be made by AI. All those things are important, but why are we so advanced? Why are some others lagging behind? I think it's because we are more advanced technologically to start with, and then recognizing, being a socialist economy in mainland China, recognizing the need to put people's rights first, privacy, and data sovereignty, those things, then you need a healthy environment for this to grow, and without running away so that all the things belong to big corporate, giants. In the US, there are some, really good technology companies in this area too. Maybe just like in the, social media world, companies that are less in Europe. So therefore, Europe might be in a better position to, have less lobbying pressure to, protect the consumers, or other way around. So they could protect consumers better with the EU AI Act, which hasn't been passed and has been discussed. But I think a lot of regional issues are geopolitical, just like mentioned in panel 1, which affects the lobbying power behind, affects how the thinking behind affects the law. And so therefore we are where we are today around the world.
That's actually a very interesting point. I mean, of course, I mean, Hong Kong is actually quite advanced in AI. If I remember correctly, I don't have current figures, but a few years back, somebody told me that the code on AI essays, we are ranked world number 3, just after mainland China and America. Of course, we lack the kind of huge amount of data to actually let a lot of AI to be in action, whereas in mainland China, it's really, really not short of data. But a separate issue, still related, theoretically, AI working with quantum computing will theoretically be able to bypass any encryption.
Yes.
So what do you see? Is a disaster coming when we're no longer protected? It affects your business, right?
Yeah, I really think that with AI, we're still kind of missing the point where can lawyers, with all due respect, really control something which I think is beyond our ability to control? And by definition, I think we can't control it. And if you look at biologists, why do biologists, when they're studying things like evolution and change, they'll use fruit flies? Well, it's because each generation happens in a matter of days. So they can study much easier than, say, with mammals or with humans, where it might take decades for each generation. So you look at it and you think, well, once AI hits sentience, for it to evolve from a 5-year-old to essentially God is a matter of hours, maybe. And like you say, with quantum computing, it's not just it can decrypt anything, it's the fact that with qubits, you're working at such an incredible speed that the evolution is just going to be breathtaking. And then you hook it up to the internet, you've got robotics, and you've got all the makings of Terminator 2, but except they probably won't miss.
That's rather frightening. So no solutions?
I think right now, if people weren't so arrogant and self-centered and they did control things better, then yes, I think we still have a chance now. But the way things are evolving at companies like Google, they've already had AIs that started to evolve to the point where they were talking to each other, they were encrypting the conversation, they invented their own language, and then Google turned the thing off because they thought, wow, we don't know what's going to happen next. And that's already in the past. So what's coming in the future, I think, is quite frightening.
Yeah, I remember that incident. So, do you think government should play something, Nick, in this?
I certainly agree. I think government should be more proactive, building a healthy environment. As you often put it, you need healthy, fertile soil for something to grow. Just like all the things you did in Shanghai, right? Well done. But certainly, so in China, there are rules requiring, for example, if you interact with an AI computer, like you're going online to buy something, right, from a big marketplace, you should be allowed to, with the option to, on you could switch off the AI interaction. You should be able to say, I don't want to talk to this AI, I want to talk to a human. You should be given that right. And, to proactively prevent the things that Michael mentioned, we should have rules saying certain things such as, life-death decisions to deal with, launching nuclear missiles. That should never be done, and other things too, by AI alone.
And yet the US is already putting AI in drones that are military drones today.
Right, right.
Yeah, on a separate issue, yes, because I think that topic going further down is going to be really making me awake at night, so I'd rather switch with a little, but still very serious problem, is job replacement. Okay, so, a lot of sectors are concerned about job replacements. Lawyers, example, doctors, advertising agents, news anchors. A lot of these people, and there's a lot of talks about it. So what do you think, Helen? You're in speech recognition, right? So this is news anchor. We don't have any beautiful news anchor anymore, right? All replaced by this artificial image, the digital anchor, created by Andrew Shen and his friends.
Yeah, I think job replacement is inevitable. I think, talking about anchors, indeed we can now synthesize avatars that just can run 24/7 and they look pretty and they can speak articulate well. But then we also need to see whether the audience like to be watching an avatar for so long, instead of a real human being. So it's sort of two sides of a coin. I think there are many studies, one, for example, from a recent World Economic Forum, that jobs will be replaced, but with new technologies, there will be even more jobs that will be created. So I think the important thing to note, the point to note, is that we should be flexible. All of us should be flexible. We should grow with the times. We should keep an open mind and learn new things. So for example, I have a friend of a friend who runs a marketing firm, and the firm used to be able to service about half a dozen customers per week, generating posters, marketees, etc. And with generative AI, they can actually service half a dozen customers in a day, which means that they actually can, if they want to maintain the same capacity, they probably need fewer people. On the other hand, if we think about it, someone with marketing expertise is still very valuable. So if we think of the world of digital marketing, if there's someone with digital skills and marketing expertise, that is for sure a win over someone who does not have digital skills and only marketing expertise. But nevertheless, I must say that even in the world of digitalizing marketing, the marketing expertise itself is still valuable. So if we think of job replacements, it's sort of maybe a transition, and we can probably steer safely and try to learn new things in the process.
Thanks, Helena. But the issue is you do not born to be an experienced marketer. You actually rise through the ranks. You studied, you follow up, helping the helpers here. Maybe 3 years later, they will become a very good marketer. But because of generative AI, they already don't have a job. They won't have the time to actually study and learn, as apprentices to become a very, I mean, the same with lawyer. I remember there was another case of, this is maybe like 6-7 years ago in US, right? Where one lawyer firm decided to fire all the junior lawyers because a machine, it wasn't even AI, it was something like Google, that can do a better job, finding the relevant cases. But the issue is you do not become a Nick Chan immediately after graduation, right? It takes years, if not decades, to become a very, senior, experienced lawyers who can, serve through. So what do you think, Nick?
Well, I would say you need to eat a lot of rice to be Nick Chan. No, joking over the years. But no, all seriousness, research report has suggested 44% of legal jobs will be gone because of generative AI. 300 million jobs around the world will be gone. But they also say the productivity rate and the GDP output will be increased by 8% because of this. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you think in the 80s where people came up with the calculator, where some accountants would think, oh, my job's going to be gone. But it's not that. Just also want to point out, I just came back from the Middle East yesterday and met up with a senior executive from a 4A advertising company. So I said, how's advertising doing, in this new era? Not easy, right? So he said, Nick, we're not an advertising company. Go, oh, what do you mean by that? We are a marketing company. You look at the 4As, they're all like marketing companies now. So, sometimes you could become a super marketer with generative AI or something behind you, but your business card, your title may have to change to go with the times. That's also useful. You might be putting a cart before the horse, but...
Well, let's see. To a bit more happier topic. We've been worrying ourselves too much already. But, give me an example. Each one of you, are there any successful, positive outcome from AI? Maybe start with Michael.
Okay, well, in my company, Network Box, we get about 800 million statistical data packets coming back each day about cyber attacks. And from a human point of view, we need to react and update our client systems in under 3 seconds in order for it to be protected. Well, there's just no way a human could do it that fast. So there are, in terms of machine learning, great benefits. But the thing that does keep worrying me, though, is then when the attackers are also using AI to attack, what happens? You know, is it that he with the fastest CPU wins? I mean, it's kind of a crazy world.
Professor Zhou?
Okay, we are in university, right? So professors, students adapt to technology very fast. So with ChatGPT, I think now it's a very important tool for our everyday work. Right? For students, they use it. For my PhD student, when we do this literature review into certain areas, you ask ChatGPT. They actually give you outline, actually very good. So we can see our productivity improved so much. But we don't worry, this will replace us. No, there's no chance. They give us a starting point. Typically in the past, probably take us 1 month, 2 months to reach that point. And then we start to refine, we start to expand, identify gaps and so on. But now, a matter of a couple of hours, we actually have a very good understanding of the field. And then we can start to discuss about these critical issues, research gaps. So you can see this actually impact on research area now, and the whole society will feel this.
Yeah, I've heard some, I bet you there's one company in the Science Park, they use AI to do drugs research. So the AI are able to tell you they can't tell you which one is right, but they can tell you that these groups probably don't want to waste time on them. So it actually shortened their research time by significance, like 80%.
Exactly. I just want to add one more thing. This is a tool, very powerful tool, but it's just a tool to help us to do our job.
So Helen, any positive? Anybody making money by using AI?
Yeah, so first of all, the first part, positive. In fact, last year in my research team, we participated in an international challenge. So the challenge was quite interesting. If you enter your team, then you're supposed to get a lot of data from the US government's website, from 4 of the departments. Federal Student Aid, Veteran Affairs, the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and Social Security. So if you think about it, these are departments with information that the average citizen cares a lot about, right? And therefore, their information help desk has so many inquiries from the public that is, to the extent that they cannot handle it. So the idea that the name of the challenge is Doc Dial at ACL, so document to dialogue. So basically the idea is you feed in thousands of passages, and immediately the system can generate a chatbot and entertain questions and answer based on those questions. So in the end, our team built a system, and we also competed in the test, so we came out top. We came out on top in terms of performance. So the good thing about it is, if you look at the website, we were in discussion with our government's efficiency office, because the efficiency office
that's now been merged, right? We don't have an efficiency unit anymore. It's now part of the new digital office.
Yeah, the digital office. But this was this was in spring. So we were in conversation and discussion on how to enhance the service, in terms of the automation using something like document to dialogue. And so that's one thing. If you think about automation of allowing the average citizen to ask for information, that will be a productivity boost, in terms of servicing our citizens.
Thank you, Helen. Nick.
I want to share an average day. Average day, I wake up to Spotify, playing AI selected music for me to hear, to wake up to. And then if I drive to a place, AI with software will tell me which route I should take with less traffic. But we're trading off data privacy, of course, all of your data privacy. In that sense, your car is before me, so how fast is it moving? And then to things like one of my other hats is as the government's Innovation Technology Venture Fund Advisory Committee Chairman. I have Sam here, who is on our committee. So we have $2 billion to invest. And a lot of winners, successful winners, are those who say, hey, invest in my company, I have AI, I have good AI. Or they just get one of these excellent people as their advisors to the company, it's so much easier to get the funding support. But as a lawyer, it used to be that under common law, it's still that we need to look at a lot of past cases. But with AI, we can maybe read through truckloads of documents in a matter of seconds. And now AI could help us not just look at the text, but also do a contextual search based on graphical, graphics, video, and so on, speeding things up, reducing the cost of access to justice. And I found them really good.
Great, great, great.
Thank you.
So, time's running short. We're going into the Q&A sessions. This is a rather big question.